Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're a new subscriber or a new viewer. My name is Kyle, and today I'm going to be reviewing Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is a film that came out in the year 2014. It was the sequel to Rise of the Planet of the Apes and is now directed by Matt Reeves, who is taking over from Rupert Wyatt. The story picks up 10 years after the events of Rise. Caesar, once again perfectly played by Andy Serkis, and the rest of the apes are living a peaceful and harmonious life in the Redwoods, only for that to be upstaged by the arrival of humans that are trying to power the city of San Francisco. Now, before we go any further, if you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and turn on post notifications so that you do not miss a single video. Also, this review will contain spoilers, so if you have not seen Dawn, please go watch it and come back to the review. If you guys saw my review for Rise, you'll know that I love that movie. I think it is outstanding. I saw it twice in the theater when it came out back in 2011. It was such an amazing movie. It's one of the best reboots ever made, and it is one of my personal favorite movies. So naturally, when I heard that they were going to be making a sequel, I was very excited, and then I learned it was going to come out in 2014, and I would say outside of probably Captain America the Winter Soldier, Dawn was my most anticipated movie of that year. I was so excited for it to come out. And while 2014 was a great year for movies, period, I do think it probably was the best year of the 2010s for films. For me personally, it was a very struggle-fueled year. There was a lot of stuff going on mentally. I was not doing the greatest at school at the time. And as a result of all of those things, I did not see this on its initial release date. I probably saw it at the very end of July or the very beginning of August, like whenever Guardians 1 came out. And I do remember at the time that my negative state of mind did impact my initial experience of seeing it in the theater. But then when War came out in 2017, I bought the Blu-ray and I rewatched it. And I liked this movie a considerably amount more than I did the first time. But the last time I saw it was 2017 when War came out. It's the last time I saw both of them. A lot has happened in our real world in the past 7 years, and that is the perfect way to jumpstart into this review because immediately we are shown how the virus is spread to the entire world. And even back in 2014, I don't think we could have predicted just how much of a reality that would become. We learned that over the years, communication has been breaking down and more humans are dying, and then all of a sudden the communication ceases. And that's when we open up the film with the eyes of Caesar. And I didn't mention Andy Serkis enough in my Rise review, but he is extraordinary. I think it's a given, which is probably why I didn't really jump on it in Rise, but I will say here, he is just phenomenal. And what I love about this is at the beginning of Rise, the humans were hunting the apes and they hunted Caesar's mom. In this movie, the apes are the hunters. Now, we know that this takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. And a lot of times that can make for less story and less character. I think the first half of this movie is bulletproof. It is an absolutely absorbing time. Like in our society, the apes have their leader, Caesar, and if the apes are going nuts, all he has to do is just raise his hand and they all shut the hell up. Now that's power right there. This movie is able to take the concepts that were brought in the previous movie and expand upon them while also creating its own unique identity because this is directed now by Matt Reeves, and he's bringing his own imagination to the table, especially with the way it is photographed. I think the cinematography in this movie is excellent, despite the fact that they're shooting it in the 185:1 aspect ratio, which is the flat rate instead of the anamorphic. I actually think that works very well here. You get a grand scale of the city, and you get these really big epic shots that I don't think would have been executed quite as well in the anamorphic format. Now that's thanks to the director of photography named Michael Seresin. If I mispronounce his last name, I do apologize. But I wanted to look up what other movies he was cinematographer for, and I realized that he photographed a movie called Angel Heart. Now, if you haven't seen that movie, definitely watch it. You are going to be in for a show if you do. The introduction to the humans is very random and brisk and blunt, But we definitely like the characters at first. Jason Clarke is very good. Keri Russell is very good. I definitely like these actors, and I feel for the first half of the movie, their characters are very interesting. We understand their situation and what they need to do in order to power the city. So their objective is very clear. And then we have the character of Koba, who I briefly mentioned in my Rise review, and of course we got to talk about him more here. He is performed by Toby Kebbell, who is spectacular in this role. He is phenomenal. Andy Serkis is and always will be the top dog, but there are some moments where Toby Kebbell is going toe-to-toe with him, and he's handling himself very well. And there's a great moment where he antagonizes Caesar to the point where Caesar just loses his cool and attacks him and is strangling him. And he refuses to because, as he says, ape not kill ape. And there's a great little insert of Koba just struggling to regain his breath. And the way he breathes, the way he exhales, it's so human. I do like the fact that in a lot of movies, the villains believe that they are the good guy in the situation. Koba, in his own warped, twisted way, thinks that he's doing these things for the greater good. But in reality, it's because of his intense hatred of humans. But you can understand because he has been viciously tortured by them. And certainly the moment where he machine guns the two humans, it was a great moment seeing it in the theater, and of course watching it now. Knowing that it's going to happen, it was still a great moment. That being said though, I do feel like that's kind of where a couple of my gripes with the movie come into play. Now, again, I'm going to say, this is a great movie, so don't take this as I'm trying to denounce this movie. I'm not trying to do that, but I do have a couple of little things that sort of irked me as I was watching it. And this is definitely the start of it, because I go, well, if he shot those two humans, wouldn't there be other humans that were securing the perimeter? Wouldn't they hear the gunshots and try to figure out what's going on? And then he just has a whole bunch of apes just gather weapons. No one sees them, no one comes in to report, and then a few minutes later, Koba just shows up out of nowhere and machine guns Caesar, and it causes him to say, the humans, they killed Caesar. They randomly came into the camp and just killed him, so now we gotta go kill them. This movie has a very similar structure to Aliens, and I feel like they certainly watched that movie to get inspiration for this one, because the first hour is very somber, but it's very intense. And then the second half is where you have your action. I mean, of course, when you come to a movie called Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, you're gonna have to see some action. There's gonna be some violence in the movie. And when the action does come, it's exciting, it's very well directed. I do think what's great about the action, not just in this movie, but in all three, is the intended and unintended consequences that come of it. Koba is leading in with pure anger and hatred. That's what he wants to do. He wants to just kill humans. But in the process, he kills more of his own people than he did the humans. To me, the reason why the second half of the movie is not as great as the first half really has to do with the human characters. They are relegated to basically background extras. And it's to the point where they're basically just props for people to sort of move around, and it's like, hey, we need you to get this, we need you to go out and get that. They don't really serve that big of a purpose, and by the end of the movie, they're gone, and we do not see them in the next one, and they're not even mentioned in the third film. And this is where I can segue perfectly into James Franco, because Caesar ends up taking them back to his childhood home, which was a really nice callback for me because I loved the first one. And Caesar watches a recording on a video camera, which how that thing has power is beyond me, but he watches a recording of he and Will. And it's great reinforcement of his character in the first movie. Malcolm comes upstairs and says, who is he? Caesar goes, he's a good man like you. So they're trying to have some kind of comparison of the two men, but I feel that a lack of Franco in this movie was a mistake. If anything, even if it was just flashbacks, I wish that we could have seen more of those interactions throughout this film. That would have helped with the continuity, and it would have continued to reinforce why Caesar is so apprehensive about trying to go after the humans. The third act is where things begin to pick up. Caesar's son goes back into town and realizes that Maurice and the other loyal apes to Caesar have all been chained up. Wow, they're imprisoning their own people. Again, the real world comparisons to this movie are uncanny here. And the climactic fight between Koba and Caesar is fantastic. Not just for the fight itself, which is very well directed, but it is for the intended and unintended consequences which lead its way into the next film. My favorite scene of the movie is the death of Koba. For one, it's emotionally satisfying, but two is there is a stark parallel to Rise, where Caesar let Koba kill Franco's boss, Jacobs. And it's a great moment because he watches him fall to his death. And in this movie, Caesar proclaims that Koba is no ape, and he kills him, and he watches Koba fall to his death. It's fantastic writing, and it's one of those things where it is going to haunt Caesar because he broke his one rule, which is ape not kill ape. And even though he doesn't see him as an ape, he still was one. So you know that it's going to create some intended and unintended consequences for the next film, because you're wondering, what are the apes who are staunchly following Koba going to think of this? So I think I'm going to wrap my thoughts up here by saying this. I do feel like, having rewatched all three of these movies back to back to back, that this one is my least favorite. And that might be a bit sacrilegious for some people, because I think for a lot this is their favorite. It certainly was the highest grossing movie of the three. I think it made over $700 million. This is a great movie. I am not denouncing that by simply saying it is my least favorite. I just feel like it's the one that has some screenwriting issues that I feel if they were tweaked a bit more, we could have had another perfect movie on our hands. I do feel like the characters suffer as a result during the second half, which is why I kind of lose interest for certain bursts of the movie. Some of those mistakes were definitely corrected in the third movie. But as it stands, this is still great. I'm going to give Dawn an A-. If you want to know my thoughts on War for the Planet of the Apes, I did a review back in 2017 for it. I'll leave a link below for you guys. I feel my thoughts on the movie are very similar, so I didn't really feel the need to re-review the film. In the meantime, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. The links to my social media pages are all in the description box below, as well as my business website, kjjpictures.com, also in the description box below. Thank you all so much as always for watching, and stay tuned.